You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, I forgot the little FanDuel thing in the bottom. I'm gonna get in trouble. All right, bud. So let's talk about some of the dudes. Obviously, my audience has heard me ad nauseum. For Cougar Country, real quick, yes, the battle between Zane, Flores, Haus, Hejny is going to be worthwhile. At the end of the day, Haus seems to be somebody that's going to be integral to packaging, whether it be short yardage, red zone scenarios. Even if he doesn't win the job, he's going to have a ton of packaging because you cannot replace that athleticism and that level of speed. From a wide receiver perspective, we don't have Boogie, right? That's going to hurt the heart a little bit, but we do have Christian Fitzpatrick from Marshall. He's the guy that seems to be grabbing the most headlines. From a running back position perspective, it's going to be more like committee. We've got Rodney Fields, Trent Hallen, Caleb Hicks, and Sesi Vailahe. They're all going to do different things, so it's not going to be like one specific dude. But the defense is going to be the calling card for this season, I feel like. And that's crazy to say. Oklahoma State's known historically for offenses. But this new Todd Grantham system is absolutely, it's intense, it's physical, it's crazy. Like, we're trying to send a message, and I cannot wait. I feel a little bit bad for UT Martin, our week one opponent, because they're not going to be prepared, in my opinion, for the physicality that we're prepared to bring. But the jack linebacker position should be circled by every opposition. We've got Wendell Gregory, South Carolina transfer, and Malik Charles, who has a long NFL pedigree that's only been playing football for a few years. Those two dudes are big time. Brian McCoy, who's a fifth-round draft grade coming out of Akron. On the corners, we got J.K. Johnson from LSU. We got Jalen Davies from UCLA. It's going to be an exciting season, an exciting time. But my audience has heard me, spiel about these dudes for a hot minute. Why is Cougar Country excited? And why does people like ESPN feel like that Houston could actually be a sleeper? And I will say, you got twice now, this is 2 years in a row, that you guys have been in my top 5 worst transfer losses for Oklahoma State. Obviously, Boogie and Jason Queso Brooks. But other than those fellas, who does Cowboy Country and everybody else in the Big 12 need to be prepared for in Houston?
Well, and I guess I should thank you for a couple of starters there. It sounds like Queso's had a great camp. But I will say, I want to give credit to Oklahoma State before I get too far, that y'all didn't just steal Hejny from TCU. He was a legacy that lived outside of Fort Worth, and his dad played for them. His mom played sports for them as well. Mm-hmm. Impressive. I'd imagine that means he's probably got some wink about playing a lot, but I don't know that. I guess you would know more about that.
Oh, he's going to play a lot. Even if he's not QB1, he's just way too fast and athletic to not play. Right.
Well, yeah, and his mom was a track star. I guess should point that out. Your mom has got the mom is always the key to this, Cody. I don't know what.
Yeah.
I tried to tell my wife that, but anyway. No, I look at Houston's roster and I think a lot of the question marks are people because it's so much newness. A couple new coordinators as well. They brought in 5 offensive linemen transfer portal. Sounds like they're competing for a handful of spots, but 1 or 2 guys from last year may start as well.
Gotcha.
They brought in a whole bunch of new DBs. They did lose 2, I guess, that are worth mentioning, but a lot of newness in Houston is why people in Houston, close to the team, feel good about it, and it's why a lot of people on the outside don't know what to expect. I will say, though, if you've been 4-8 2 consecutive years, it might be time to change that up some. Right? You can't be critical of what it was like and also not like having new players, because you clearly couldn't win with the other guys, right? And so Conner Weigman is the big splash here. He committed in the transfer portal in December of 2024, right after it opened up. And he is from Houston, Bridgeland High School. And he was a 5-star, top 3 kid in the class coming out of high school, and it just didn't work out at A&M. He redshirted, then he got hurt. And then he got hurt again.
Because A&M's a dumpster fire, bro.
Well, that too. They had a couple coaches and multiple offense coordinators come through. He never got settled there. And we also learned in an article by CBS Sports in March, how hurt he was. He hurt his shoulder in the 3rd quarter of the first game of the season.
Oh, wow.
And he was just they're playing Notre Dame. He'd already played bad for the first half, but we now know Notre Dame was pretty good. All right. And he was like, I can't set a season hurt again. If I don't have to have surgery, I'm going to play through this. And then he ends up straining his bicep because he alters how he's throwing with the bad shoulder. It was all bad, right? And so he's all good to go. He's full go now, and they're hoping to have more of the guy out of high school. And if they keep him upright, again, he has been hurt twice. He's had a lower body injury his redshirt freshman year, and he had an upper body injury his second year as a starter there. But if they can keep him upright, like they've always had receivers. You mentioned Stephon Boogie Johnson. They bring in Mekhi Muse 18 months ago. He's more of a slotty kind of guy.
Right.
They have Harvey Broussard, comes in from Louisiana. Amari Thomas was the top pass catcher 2 years in a row at South Florida. They got some really talented receivers and a tight end. And I love big guys. This guy's Tanner Kozel, 6'7". He's like listed at 250. He was at Ball State. He spent a month or two at Wisconsin before deciding to come to Houston. Kozel's, his PFF stuff's off the charts. He had 94 catches as a tight end last year. He's not like the road grading blocker that you might want out of some old school offenses, but the guy can catch the ball as a big body. I'm excited about the passing offense, and it might be because we had 2 consecutive years of not throwing the ball very well. But I'm excited about where that's going. Defensively, 2 different guys from Tulane at the linebacker spots are kind of where I'm got my eyes at. Last year, defense was kind of Houston's calling card. It was like they could hold teams under 16 points. They're okay. Which you
have a guy named Jesus. Like that's hard to beat.
He's one of our 2 linebackers. Jesus Machado. He comes from Tulane. And he played for Fritz at Tulane, stayed there for a year after Fritz left, and ultimately decided to join him at Houston. His linebacker teammate will be Corey Platt, who came over to Houston with Fritz initially, did tear his ACL, so he hadn't played for Houston yet. He was highly touted out of Tulane, though. When he came to Houston, people were kind of surprised. People knew he would leave Tulane. I think people were surprised he was following Fritz and not going to like LSU down the road. So we'll see how that recovery looks. Obviously, everything from camp sounds like he's all good to go. He's really so the linebacking core is new but fun. And so I'm excited about a lot of things. I will say, though, this is the most chaotic conference of college football. You can have a really good team and be 9-3 because the Big 12 happened. like you can be like that's just how it goes. And so I'm looking between 7 and 8, 9 wins, and I can on a good day talk myself into the higher end of that. But it's also, it's the first season in a long time that I feel good about Houston's non-conference schedule. They've got Stephen F. Austin to start. They have Rice. They play every year. And then their Power 4 team, they had a previously scheduled matchup with Oregon State. Well, Oregon State is not really the same Power 4 team it was a couple years back when the game was scheduled. And so suddenly it feels like that could be 3 wins. Like I feel good about that. And they only had 4 wins each of the last 2 seasons. So like suddenly we're cooking with gas, right? Right, Cody? Who'd you replace Queso with or Boogie? What you got going on in Stillwater?
Well, we got 6'6", 305-pound Bob Schick from Virginia Tech. That's going to be the guy that's going to potentially slide in there. We also were able to go get Markel Samuel, the 6'4", 305-pound offensive tackle from Appalachian State. He has the ability to slide around. We also got Grant Sigrin from Nebraska, and he's a very interesting story because he went from a defensive end to a tight end to now an offensive lineman, and he just made that transfer to O-line last year at Nebraska.
What you're telling me there is that the metabolism slowed down. He started eating. That's what.
There you go. Yes. He just kept growing and growing and growing. But you've seen it. The guys who play defensive end, tight end all throughout high school and maybe even early into college, if they continuously grow, they don't typically lose that athleticism that got them there in the first place. So that's the benefit of when you have a tight end that kind of explodes upwards muscle-wise to an offensive lineman. Dude, I think that there's a lot of similarities about the perception of Oklahoma State and Houston, which is precisely why I wanted to do this. I would admit I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up our tight end, Josh Ford. If he doesn't have a successful career as a tight end, we might be seeing him on in the UFC at some point in time. The dude eats, sleeps, and breathes the physicality of this game of football. You absolutely have to have it. I'm excited for it. And you mentioned in this bipolar Big 12 conference, you can have a good team and end up on the bad side of a record. But that is something that I think that West Virginia fans need to remember. And, ironically, before we get to that real quick, you mentioned your non-con. In the squad show, I gave you a little bit of a hard time about your non-con. Bro, I can't talk because we turn around like hours later and we announced that we're playing Lindenwood University in a couple of years. I was like, oh my gosh, really? Like timing wise, not great. If you haven't checked out the squad show, you got to go do so. But anywho, all right, buddy. So let's talk a little bit about this bipolar conference that we all know and love to some degree, because our buddies Drake and Cam, and for everybody out there, hit the subscribe button for Locked On Cougs and my show, so that way Drake can keep his job. But they discussed how West Virginia is at least being talked about in some areas as a potential front runner to make this SEC jump. I think it's ludicrous, but maybe not for the reasons that you may think. We'll hit that here in a second.